I'd been staring at that thing for 3 months, through the observation deck windows. The planet that shouldn't exist, just sitting there in our solar system like it belonged. Command called it an anomaly. I called it impossible. The exploration vessel hummed around me as we made our final approach. Standard procedure for first contact missions. Except nothing about this was standard. You don't get planets just showing up one day. Physics doesn't work that way, but there it was. Rocky and brown and definitely real on every sensor we had. Commander, we're at optimal insertion distance. That was Bailey. Communications officer, 27, sharp as they come. She'd been running constant scans for the past week, looking for any sign of what we might find down there. Nothing, just rock and silence. I turned from the viewport. Take us down. The crew I'd handpicked was already strapped in, 5 people total, including me. Mildred at the systems console, her black hair pulled back like always. Jay checking the engineering readouts one more time because that's what Jay did. Sadie with her specimen containers lined up and ready. Bailey at comms. We had trained for this mission for months. Simulations, emergency protocols, team building, exercises that made us all want to quit. Standard stuff, mostly. Except for the part where nobody could tell us what we were actually going to find. The briefing had been pretty basic. New planet appears, go look at it, come back, try not to die. That last part wasn't in the official orders, but it was implied. Descent trajectory looks good, Jay said. His French accent made everything sound calmer than it probably was. No atmospheric interference. I figured there wouldn't be. The planet looked dead from orbit. No weather patterns. No signs of water. No electromagnetic signatures that suggested life. Just a big rock that somehow wandered into our neighborhood. The landing sequence went smoother than expected. No turbulence, no system warnings, no last-minute surprises. The kind of smooth that makes you nervous because you're waiting for something to go wrong. We touched down on what looked like a plain of gray stone. Flat, featureless, stretching to the horizon in every direction. The perfect place to land a ship, actually. Too perfect. Atmosphere's breathable, Mildred announced, checking her readouts. Oxygen levels are good, temperature's mild, no toxins detected. Life signs? I asked. Negative, not a soul around. That's what I expected. Dead world, quick survey, back home in time for dinner. Simple mission. I should have known better. The first sign something was off came when we stepped outside. The air felt wrong, not toxic or dangerous, just old. Like it had been sitting there still for centuries and quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you want to whisper. Spread out, I told the team. Standard survey pattern, stay in visual contact. We'd done this drill 100 times in training. Fan out, take readings, collect samples, map the immediate area. Basic exploration protocol. I was checking the soil composition, reading on my scanner when Sadie's voice came through the comm. Commander, you need to see this. Her tone made me look up. Sadie didn't get excited easily. Takes a lot to surprise a biologist who spent half her career studying weird alien microbes. I followed her voice and found her sitting about 50 meters from the landing site. She was staring at something in the distance, her scanner forgotten in her hand. What is it? I asked. She pointed. That's when I saw it. A castle. Not ruins. Not some ancient alien structure that might have been a castle if you squinted. An actual, honest-to-God medieval castle, complete with towers and walls and everything. It rose from the rocky plain like it had been there forever. Gray stone, weathered but solid. Gothic spires reaching up towards the sky. Massive walls that looked thick enough to stop a tank. That's impossible, Jay said over the comm. He'd spotted it too. Yeah, that was my first thought as well. The thing looked old. Really old. Centuries old. But this planet had only been in our solar system for a few months. We had satellite data proving it. Before that, empty space. Could it be some kind of natural formation? Bailey asked. I looked at the structure through my binoculars. Carved stone, deliberate architecture, windows and doorways in all the right places. No, I said. That's definitely artificial. Sadie was already taking readings with her equipment. I'm not detecting any life signs from inside, but there are some unusual energy signatures. What kind of energy? Unknown. Low level, but consistent. Like there's some kind of power source running. That made it even weirder. Dead planet? Ancient castle, and something still powered up inside. Orders, Commander? Mildred asked. I thought about it. Protocol set to establish a secure perimeter and report back to command before investigating unknown structures. But Protocol also said planets don't just appear out of nowhere, and here we are. We approach carefully, I decided. Full sensor sweep. If anything looks dangerous, we back off immediately. The walk to the castle took about 20 minutes. The ground was solid stone the whole way, worn smooth like an old road. No vegetation, no debris, nothing but flat rock leading right up to the walls. The castle got bigger as we got closer. A lot bigger. The main gate was easily 20 feet tall, with towers stretching up maybe 100 feet on either side. Scan shows the structure is solid, Mildred reported. No structural damage detected. It's like it was built yesterday, except it wasn't. The stone had that weathered look that takes centuries to develop, and there were details you don't see in new construction. Worn spots on the steps where countless feet had walked. Smooth patches on the walls where hands had touched the stone. Energy readings are stronger here, Sadie said. Whatever's powering this place is definitely inside. I walked up to the main entrance, the rest of the team flanking me. The doors were hung up close, dark wood that looked almost black with age. Iron hinges that had to weigh a ton each. And they were open. Not wide open, just cracked. Maybe 6 inches of gap between the two doors, like someone had started to close them and then stopped. That's convenient, Jay muttered. Yeah, a little too convenient. I peered through the gap, but couldn't see much. Darkness inside with maybe a hint of light coming from somewhere deeper in the structure. Bailey, are you getting any communication signals from inside? Negative, Commander. No radio traffic, no data transmissions, nothing. Mildred, what do your sensors show? The energy signatures are definitely coming from inside. Multiple sources, all low level. Could be lighting systems, basic power grid. Nothing that looks like a weapon. I stepped back and looked at the castle again. Ancient stone, impossible age, mysterious power source, and doors that were just open enough to let us know that we were invited. The smart thing would have been to set up camp outside and study the structure for a few days, map the exterior, run more detailed scans, maybe send in a drone first. But standing there looking at these doors, I knew we weren't going to wait. The mission was to explore and report. Hard to do that from outside. Alright, I said. We're going in. Stay together, stay alert. First sign of trouble, we're back to the ship. The door stood slightly ajar in front of us, dark wood framing a slice of shadow. Whatever was inside had been waiting a long time. I stepped through those doors and figured we'd find someone's idea of a joke. The place looked like a museum that forgot to age. Tapestries hung from the wall in perfect condition, deep reds and golds that should have faded to nothing centuries ago. The patterns showed hunting scenes, knights on horsebacks, the whole medieval thing, but the colors were so bright they looked fresh off the loom. Recording everything, I said into my comm, keeping my voice low. The acoustics in here were weird. Every footstep echoed like we were walking through a cathedral. Mildred had her scanner out, sweeping the walls. The device beeped softly as it cataloged whatever it was picking up. These readings don't make sense, she said, tapping the screen. The materials are showing as both ancient and contemporary. That's not possible. Jay knelt by a wooden chest that sat against one wall. Heavy oak carved with the same hunting motifs as the tapestries. This wood should be rotted through, he said, running his hands over the surface. But look at this grain, it's perfect. I kept walking. The corridor stretched ahead of us, lit by torches that burned without any visible fuel source. Real flames, not electric. I could smell the smoke, feel the heat when I passed close enough, but there were no wicks burning down. No oil reservoirs feeding them, just fire that kept going. Sadie was documenting everything with her camera, the flash bouncing off stone walls that looked like they had been carved yesterday. The preservation here is unprecedented, she said. Whatever's maintaining this place, it's operating on principles we don't understand. Bailey stayed close to me, her comm equipment crackling with static. Getting interference from somewhere, she said. It's not blocking our signals, but there's definitely something active in here. We passed through 3 more rooms, a dining hall with a table set for 20, silver goblets still gleaming, a library with books that should have crumbled to dust but felt solid under my hands when I picked one up. The text was in some language I didn't recognize. Old script hand-lettered on what looked like real parchment. This place doesn't follow any logical timeline, I said into my comm, making sure everything was being recorded back at the ship. We're seeing preservation methods that don't exist. That's when I made the call to split up. I know how that sounds. Every horror movie starts with someone saying those exact words. But we had limited time, and the place was huge. 3 stories, multiple wings, probably dozens of rooms. Standard protocol was to maintain team integrity, but standard protocol didn't account for finding a perfectly preserved medieval castle on an impossible planet. Mildred, Jay, take the eastern wing, I said. Document everything, maintain radio contact every 10 minutes. Sadie, Bailey, you're with me, on the tower levels. Mildred nodded, checking her equipment one more time. Copy that. We'll start with the lower floors and work up. Jay was already heading toward a stone archway that led deeper into the eastern section. Looks like there's a whole series of chambers back there, he called over his shoulder. 10-minute check-ins, I repeated. First sign of anything unusual, we regroup immediately. Bailey adjusted her comm headset. All channels are clear. We'll maintain contact. I watched them disappear through the archway. Mildred's scanner was still beeping softly, and I could hear their voices echoing off the stone wall as they moved deeper into the castle. Then it was just me, Sadie, and Bailey standing in that dining hall with its impossible table setting. Tower levels are this way, I said, pointing towards a spiral staircase I'd spotted earlier. The steps were carved stone, worn smooth in the centers where countless feet had walked them, but there were no chips, no cracks, nothing that suggested actual age. We climbed 3 flights. The staircase opened onto a series of chambers that looked like they'd been designed for nobility. Bedrooms with 4 poster beds, sitting rooms with furniture that belonged in a palace. Everything in perfect condition. Everything wrong. Bailey's first check-in came exactly 10 minutes later. Eastern Wing reporting in, we've found what looks like a kitchen complex, industrial scale, designed to feed a small army. All equipment intact. Copy, I said. We're documenting the upper chambers. Nothing unusual to report. But that wasn't exactly true. There was something unusual about everything. The way the dust settled in patterns that suggested recent movement. The way some of the beds looked like someone had been sleeping in them. Fresh linen. Pillows with head impressions still visible. Sadie noticed it too. Someone's been living here, she said quietly, examining a wash basin that still had water in it. Clean water. I keyed my comm. All teams, be advised, we're finding signs of recent habitation. Stay alert. That's when Jay's voice cut through the static. He was mid-sentence, reporting on some kind of ceremonial chamber that they'd found when the transmission just died. Not a gradual fade or interference, just there 1 second, gone the next. Jay, repeat your last, I said into my comm. Nothing. Eastern Wing team, please respond. Silence. Bailey, can you boost the signal? She was already working on her equipment, adjusting frequencies and power levels. I'm getting nothing from their location. Complete radio silence. We're going back down, I said. The sprint through those corridors felt like the longest run of my life. Stone walls flashed past us as we retraced our steps, down the spiral staircase, back through the dining hall, towards the eastern archway where I'd last seen them. I found Mildred in what looked like a storage room, huddled against the far wall with her knees drawn up to her chest. Blood covered her hands and uniform, bright red against the gray fabric. Too much blood. Way too much blood. Mildred, dropping to one knee beside her. Where's Jay? She looked up at me with eyes that had seen something they weren't supposed to see. Gone, she whispered. Gone where? What happened? Her hands were shaking. The blood wasn't hers. No wounds that I could see. No injuries. But it was fresh. Still wet. Something moved, she said. Too fast, I couldn't see what it was. I scanned the room. Stone walls, wooden shelves, clay jars lined up in neat rows. No signs of struggle. No damage to nothing. No Jay. Tell me exactly what happened. We were documenting the storage areas, Mildred said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jay was examining some kind of preservation system. These jars, they're filled with something that's keeping the organic material fresh. He was taking readings when... She stopped talking. When what? Movement. In my peripheral vision. Something dark. Fast. I turned to look around and Jay was just gone. No sound. No struggle. Just gone. And then there was blood on the floor where he'd been standing. I checked my comm. Tried raising him again. Nothing. I tried the ship. Base, this is Aguilar. We have a crew member missing. Eastern Wing. Storage complex. Requesting immediate backup. Static answered me. Base, do you copy? More static. I keyed the comm for the tower team. Sadie, Bailey responded immediately. The silence that came back made my chest tight. Not static this time, just empty air, like the signal was reaching nothing at all. They're gone too, Mildred said, reading my expression. Aren't they? I tried again, cycling through all frequencies, boosting the signal strength as high as I could go. All teams, this is Commander Aguilar. Immediate radio check. Respond on any frequency. Nothing. Whatever was in this place with us had just taken 3 of my people, and now it was hunting the rest. I kept telling myself they'd wandered into a dead zone, some kind of interference from the stone walls or whatever weird energy this place was giving off. That lasted about 20 minutes. I found Sadie first, or what was left of her anyway. Her specimen kit was scattered across spiral staircases like someone had just dumped it out. The sample containers rolled down the steps, making these tiny clicking sounds that echoed way too loud in the quiet. Her field tablet was cracked against the wall. The screen showed her last entry, something about unusual plant growth patterns in the courtyard. The dark stains on the stone steps weren't unusual plant growth. They were still wet, fresh. I figured that was probably the worst part until I noticed the drag marks leading up into the shadows above. Long smears that disappeared around the curve of the staircase. I called her name a few times. My voice just bounced back at me. That's when Bailey started screaming. The sound came from somewhere deeper in the castle. These long, terrified shrieks that cut through the stone wall like they were made of paper. I ran towards the noise, my boots slapping against the floors. The screaming got louder for maybe 10 seconds. Then it just stopped. Complete silence. I found her torn uniform in what looked like a dining hall. The fabric was shredded and scattered around a massive oak table that could have seated 20 people. Her communication headset was crushed against one of the chair legs. The little radio waves tattoo behind her ear, that was gone too, along with the ear. More dark stains, more drag marks. These ones led towards a fireplace that was way too big for any normal room. I didn't follow them. Bailey had been our link to the ship, and without her, we were just stuck here with whatever was picking us off. I tried her radio frequencies anyway. Static. White noise. Nothing. That left Mildred and me. We stuck together after that. Didn't matter that we were supposed to be exploring. Survival trumped the mission. We moved through the halls like we were clearing a hostile building, back to back, checking corners, not touching anything we didn't have to. Mildred kept checking her scanner readings. The device beeped constantly in the silence. She'd mutter technical stuff under her breath in that slight French accent of hers. Energy signatures inconsistent with known parameters. That kind of thing. It probably helped her stay calm. We made it through the first night holed up in some kind of study. Leather chairs, a desk the size of a small car. Paintings of people in fancy clothes who all looked like they'd be rather somewhere else. The windows showed nothing but darkness outside. No stars, no ship lights in the distance. The second day I got careless. There was this room we hadn't checked yet. Looked like a conservatory or something. Big windows, empty plant containers, the kind of space where rich people used to grow exotic flowers. I told Mildred to wait by the door while I swept it. Should have known better. In horror movies, that's when people die, but this wasn't a movie, and I was trained for tactical situations. I figured I could handle one room. I was wrong. The screaming started when I was maybe 15 feet from the entrance, high-pitched and desperate. Mildred's voice calling my name, then just raw terror. I spun around and ran back, but the doorway was empty. Just her equipment scanner on the floor still beeping. Still reading those inconsistent energy signatures. The drag marks led into a wall that shouldn't have had an opening, but when I got close, I could see a gap in the stone, like a hidden passage that someone had just opened long enough to take her. I was alone after that. The castle felt different without the others. Bigger. The silence was complete except for my breathing and my footsteps. Every shadow looked like it was moving. Every sound I made seemed to wake something up. I found the library on the third day. It was the most normal room I'd seen since we got here. Tall shelves packed with books, a reading table, chairs that looked comfortable instead of ancient and threatening. The windows had actual glass instead of those weird crystal things. I barricaded the door with a heavy bookshelf, piled chairs against it for good measure. The books were all wrong though, languages I didn't recognize. Scripts that hurt to look at for too long. Some of them felt warm when I touched them. That's where I was when night fell. Real night, not just the weird twilight this place seemed to live in. Darkness outside the windows was complete. No moon, no stars, no nothing. I'd been sitting at the reading table for maybe an hour when I heard footsteps in the hallway outside. Slow and deliberate. Like someone taking their time. The steps stopped right outside the door. I held my breath and waited. The sound stretched out until I started to think I'd imagine it. Then something spoke through the wood. Commander Aguilar. Perfect English. no accent, the kind of voice you'd hear reading the news. I didn't answer, couldn't really. My throat had decided to stop working. I know you're in there. We need to talk. The bookshelf I'd used as a barricade started to slide away from the door, just pushed aside like it weighed nothing. The chairs clattered to the floor. The door swung open. The thing that walked into the library looked human, almost. 6 feet tall, pale skin that seemed to glow a little in the dim light. Dark hair slicked back from a face that was too sharp. It moved like it was floating instead of walking. No wasted motion. The fangs were pretty obvious once it smiled. You're wondering what happened to your crew, it said, still, that calm news anchor voice. They serve their purpose, as will you. Though, perhaps, we can make it more civilized. I found my voice. What are you? Trapped. It settled into one of the chairs across from me like we were having tea. Just as you are now, this world, this castle. It's been my prison for 3 centuries, since the planet was torn from its original orbit and began its wandering through space. It gestured at the books around us. I've had time to read, to learn, to wait for visitors like yourself. Your people weren't the first to find this place, though they may be among the last. The blood? I said. In the halls? Sustenance. It shrugged like we were discussing the weather. I require it to survive. Your species provides adequate nutrition, though I prefer when my guests are willing to participate in the arrangement. The thing leaned forward, those 2 sharp teeth caught the light. I'm offering you a choice, Commander. Join me willingly, and your death will be swift. Continue to resist, and you'll end up like your crew members, screaming until the very end. You're a system specialist, it said, running one pale finger along the stone wall. Mildred, wasn't it? She fought the longest, kept trying to reach her radio even as I drained her. The terror in her eyes when she realized no help was coming. Quite exquisite. I kept my face blank. Military training, I guess. Don't give the enemy what they want, but inside my stomach was doing flips. Mildred had been with me for 6 years, solid as they come. The engineer proved less entertaining. Jay, I believe. He simply stood there as I approached. Shock, perhaps, or acceptance. Either way, his blood was particularly sweet. Young men often are. The creature moved closer, and I caught that smell again. Copper and decay, like a morgue that had lost power. And Sadie. It actually smiled when it said her name. The biologist. She tried to bargain with me, offered to share her research if I spared her life. As if I had any interest in her little specimens when she herself was such a delightful vintage. My hands wanted to shake. I kept them steady. Sadie had 3 kids back on Earth. Twin boys and a girl, maybe 7 years old. She'd shown me pictures during the flight out. The vampire kept going. Described Bailey's final moments in details I won't repeat. How she'd screamed, how she'd begged, how her communications training hadn't helped her when she needed it most. Each one had their own flavor. It said, like we were discussing wine. Fear changes the blood chemistry, makes it more complex, more satisfying. I wanted to kill it right there. Wanted to grab that ancient throat and squeeze it until something gave. But I'd seen what happened to my crew. This thing moved faster than anything had a right to. You're wondering how this is possible, the creature said. It was reading me pretty well. How I came to be here, how this world travels between systems. I didn't answer, figured it would tell me anyway. This planet is mine, Commander. Has been for over 2,000 years. I shaped it, molded it, made it into a vessel that carries me wherever I choose to go. The throne room felt smaller suddenly, like the walls were listening. When I grow hungry, and I do grow hungry, we seek our populated systems. Your Earth's broadcasts have been quite helpful in that regard. All those signals floating through space, advertising your locations, your populations, your weaknesses. It stood up from the throne, moved with that same impossible grace I'd noticed before. We position ourselves just so close enough to attract attention, far enough to seem mysterious. Then we wait for the curious to come calling. Explorers, scientists, military commanders with their crews. I was starting to understand. You've done this before. Oh, many times. Your species isn't the first to discover us. It won't be the last either. The creature walked in a slow circle around me. Though, you humans do have a particular intensity to your fear. It's quite refreshing. My mind was racing. This thing had been hunting for centuries, maybe longer, using its planet like a bait and drawing in ships full of people just to feed. Which brings me to you, Commander. Here it comes, I thought. You are to be my final course, the last taste before we move on to the next system. I've been saving you for last. I kept my breathing steady. Figured as much. However, the vampire stopped walking, looked at me with those black eyes. I'm prepared to make you an offer. That I hadn't expected. I'm listening. Return to your Earth, resume your normal life, but every 10 years you will provide me with one human sacrifice. Someone young, healthy, full of that delicious terror your species produces so well. I stared at it. You want me to become your supplier? Such crude language. Think of yourself as a contract, a bridge between our species. The offer hung in the air between us. I could feel my crew's blood on the stones beneath my feet. Could hear Sadie's kids asking where their mom went. And if I refuse, then you die here, slowly, like the others. The creature's smile got wider. I can make it last days, Commander. Your military training might help you endure longer than most, which would make it all the more enjoyable for me. I looked around the throne room, at the tapestries that shouldn't exist, at the stone walls that had probably seen this exact conversation before, at that creature that had murdered 4 good people and was asking me to help it murder more. The smart play was obvious. The survival play. I accept. The words came out easier than they should have. That's what scared me most. Excellent. The vampire clapped its hands together once. Now, we must formalize our agreement. It walked to one of those tapestries and pulled it aside. Behind it was an alcove, carved into the stone. Inside sat a small wooden table covered with things I didn't want to look at too closely. An ancient ritual, the creature explained, moving to the table. One that ensures our bargain cannot be broken. Step forward. I did. Didn't have much choice at that point. The table held a collection of objects that looked like they'd been pulled from dozens of different cultures. A curved dagger with symbols carved into the blade, a stone bowl stained dark around the edges, some kind of incense that smelled like burned hair, and in the center, a piece of parchment covered in writing I couldn't read. Your blood will seal the contract, the vampire said, picking up the dagger. Break our agreement and you'll die instantly, no matter where you are. No matter how far you run. It handed me the blade. The metal felt cold enough to burn. Cut your palm. Let the blood fall into the bowl. I looked at the dagger for a long moment. This was it. Cross this line and I'd be bound to this thing for the rest of my life. Become part of its feeding cycle. Help it murder innocent people. But the alternatives was dying right here, right now, and that wouldn't bring my crew back. I drew the blade across my palm, deeper than I meant to. The blood came fast, dripping into the stone bowl with small wet sounds that echoed into the silence. The vampire began speaking in a language I'd never heard. The words seemed to move through the air like living things. The blood in the bowl started to smoke. Then the creature took the dagger from me and cut its own hand. Black liquid fell into the bowl, mixing with my red blood. The smoking got worse. It is done, the vampire said. I felt something change, like a weight settling into my chest, a pressure that hadn't been there before. You will feel it always, the creature explained, wrapping its hand in a piece of cloth that appeared from nowhere. The binding, a reminder of our agreement. It reached into the alcove and pulled out something that looked like a communicator, but wrong. The metal was too dark, and it hummed with energy that made my teeth ache. When the time comes to fulfill your obligation, use this device. It will summon us. We'll arrive within a standard week. I took the thing. It was heavier than it looked. 10 years, Commander. Not 9, not 11. Exactly 10 years from today. Bring us someone between the ages of 20 and 30. Someone healthy. Someone who will last long enough to be properly enjoyed. The weight on my chest got heavier. How will I? You'll find a way. You're resourceful. That's why you survived when your crew didn't. The vampire walked back to its throne. Now go. Return to your ship. Leave this place. I started walking towards the door. My legs felt unsteady. Commander, I stopped. Didn't turn around. Remember what happens if you try to warn anyone or seek help, or break our agreement in any way. The binding will know, and your death will make your crew's suffering look like a pleasant afternoon. I kept walking. The corridors felt different on the way back, shorter, like the building was helping me leave. I didn't question it. My ship was exactly where I'd left it. The crew's gear still scattered around the cargo bay. Mildred's tablet on the console. Jay's coffee cup half empty on the navigation station. I sat in the pilot's seat and started the launch sequence. My hands moved automatically. Muscle memory taking over while my brain tried to process what just happened. The planet fell away beneath me. The impossible world that shouldn't exist. That had existed long enough to murder who knew how many crews, how many expeditions that never made it home. The communication device sat on the seat beside me, humming its wrong energy, reminding me what I'd agreed to. I composed my report on the flight back. Equipment failure during surface exploration. Catastrophic decompression in the lower levels of the structure. 4 crew members lost. Commander Raiden Aguilar, sole survivor. Simple, clean, believable. The kind of thing that happened sometimes in deep space. The kind of accident that remind everyone why exploration was dangerous, why good people died for bad reasons. I transmitted that report when I reached communication range. Got confirmation that a recovery team would meet me at the station, that there would be debriefings, investigations, questions. I had answers ready for all of them. The binding pressed against my chest like a second heartbeat, counting down 10 years, 3,650 days. I'd have to find someone by then, someone young and healthy and full of terror that the thing craved. Someone's kid, probably, someone's future. That was the price of coming home, of walking away from that throne alive. I kept my eyes on the navigation display and tried not to think about Sadie's twins, about how they'd grown up without their mom, about how someday I'd have to help that creature take someone else's mom, someone else's kid. The stars looked different now, like they were watching, like they knew what I'd become. They gave me the Silver Star first, then the Distinguished Service Cross. After that, some medal I'd never heard of with a name longer than my service record. The investigation took 6 months. I sat through dozens of interviews, answered the same questions over and over. What happened to your crew? How did you survive? Can you describe the entity again? I stuck to my story, told them about the creature, the ancient castle, the hunt through endless corridors, left out the part about making a deal, left out the part about owing it 3 lives. The investigators called my account credible. Extraordinary circumstances, they wrote. Commander Aguilar displayed exceptional courage and resourcefulness in the face of an unknown hostile entity. They promoted me to a full colonel, gave me a corner office at Houston headquarters, started bringing me to conferences as the guy who'd survived first contact with something that shouldn't exist. I played the part, talked about the importance of preparedness, the need for new protocols when dealing with unknown threats. People hung on every word, called me a hero. The weight of it ate at me from day one, not the lies, those came easy enough. It was knowing what was coming, knowing that thing was out there somewhere, waiting. That device it gave me stayed cold in my desk drawer for 10 years. Just a smooth piece of metal about the size of a quarter, warm to the touch but never getting warmer. Until it did. I was reviewing training schedules when that thing started heating up. Not enough to burn, but enough to notice. Then it started pulsing. Slow at first, time to pay up. Warren Herman made it easy. Kid had been following my career since he graduated from academy. Sent me letters asking for advice. Showed up at my lectures with questions that went on too long. He wanted what I'd had. The glory, the recognition, the chance to make it history. Perfect. I started mentoring him about 6 months before the device activated. Told him I saw potential, that he reminded me of myself at his age. The kid practically glowed every time I said his name. When the time came, I invited him over for dinner, told him I wanted to discuss his next assignment, that there might be an opportunity for accelerated advancement. He showed up 20 minutes early with a bottle of wine and a stupid grin. Commander Aguilar, sir, this is such an honor. Just Raiden tonight, Warren. We're off duty. My dining room looked normal. Hardwood table I'd bought at a furniture store in Clear Lake, chairs that matched, a centerpiece my sister had given me for Christmas. Nothing to suggest what was about to happen. I cooked chicken marsala. Warren complimented everything. The wine, the food, the way I'd set the table. Kid had probably never eaten a meal that wasn't a cafeteria food or takeout. This is incredible, sir. Raiden. I can't believe you went to all this trouble. No trouble at all. You remind me of myself when I was starting out. Eager, dedicated. The kind of astronaut we need more of. He lit up after that. Started talking about his goals, his training scores, how much the space program meant to him, how his mom had watched every one of my interviews on the news. I kept nodding, asking questions, playing the interested mentor. The whole time the device in my pocket was getting warmer. Warren ate everything on his plate, asked for seconds, told me about growing up in Nebraska, about his dad who died when he was 12. About how he dreamed of space travel since he was a kid watching shuttle launches on TV. My mom always said I aimed too high, he said, cutting another piece of chicken. But you proved that impossible things can happen, that someone like me can make a difference. Someone like you definitely can. He smiled at that, had no idea he was talking to the guy who was about to hand him over to something that would drain every drop of blood from his body. The device pulsed harder, getting impatient. I watched Warren finish his meal, watched him laugh at my stories about training mishaps and bureaucratic nonsense. Kid hung on every word, probably thought this was the best night of his life. Kid pushed his plate away and leaned back in his chair. That was amazing, Raiden. Thank you for this. For everything. You're welcome, Warren. The device was almost hot now. Time to make the call. Now the device was burning against my leg as I reached into my pocket.